whenever I'm really excited about something, I talk about it in a way that it already happened in the future.
Mm-hmm.
So I plant that vision in someone. Internally, we've talked about how can we be a disruptor, right?
Yeah.
Especially myself being in education, I know the good stuff and obviously like things that need to be worked on, right? Education is not perfect, but it should always be evolving, and sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's stagnant. The way that I see design education and the way that I would want design education to be is more of this apprenticeship format. The reason why I'm saying that is I'm a really big fan of Dwayne Edward. He started Pencil in Portland, and the way that he does it is he has, you know, this boot camp style of where students are like taking a class, and it's very intense, right? You go through really intense footwear training, and at the end, you know, Pencil guarantees that these students are like the best of the best, and there's companies lined up waiting to hire them.
Welcome to Designdrives, your audio experience about what, how, and why design drives things forward. A podcast hosted by Sebastian Gier, together with forward-thinking design practitioners from around the world.
In this episode, I have the chance to talk to Hector Silva about the future of design education. He's a research associate professor at the University of Notre Dame and an initiator and founder of Advanced Design, under which umbrella Hector and his team have launched conferences like Square One, a podcast called Context, as well as many other initiatives to advance design as a discipline, especially industrial design, and ultimately help and serve an impressive following on social media through various channels to become better designers or deal with problems along the journey. It was super inspiring to listen to Hector's thinking of actually rethinking design education. And this episode, we're actually doing a collaboration between Advanced Design's Context podcast and my personal podcast, which is Designdrives. He has been awarded as the IDSA Young Educator of the year 2017, and he has his team Advanced Design actually won the Special Achievement Award last year by IDSA, showing the positive contribution they are doing for the design community, which I personally highly respect. This episode was recorded during the IDC conference in Chicago, so I hope you enjoyed the episode.
Welcome to a special edition of Context Podcast and Designdrives. We're live from Chicago at the IDSA International Design Conference. I'm Hector Silva, representing Advanced Design, and we're here with Sebastian, as part of Designdrives, and you hail from Munich, here as a speaker at IDC, and you're on the design team at BMW, right?
Yeah.
So thank you so much for making this possible and for connecting the dots and making this, special collaboration between both podcasts.
Sure. Yeah, pretty excited to chat with you. So I think what's interesting is also that we both run a podcast, but also I think the mission I think is also interesting because advanced design is all about giving back to the community, and this is also a little bit the drive behind Designdrives, obviously, to this whole topic about giving back. So I think from that kind of perspective, it's like great to connect. And so I wonder a little bit about like how it all started out for you. Obviously you do together with a bunch of other people, but you were really the driver, especially in the early days, behind this. So wondering a little bit how it all started out.
Sure. I mean, this honestly started, the idea of having being a part of a design team really started when I was in grad school. When I was in grad school, for those who know me, I've been very obsessed with, Apple, and I love their aesthetic, and I have a lot of their products and things like that. And so I'm an Apple fanboy, but, at Apple, Johnny Ive had his very private design team. And that design team, they were all like brothers, right? And they all fed off of each other. They all, they all organically just functioned, right? And when I was in grad school, I had read this article about this exclusive and elite design team that only reported to Steve Jobs. they were almost like second in command in Apple, which is a huge corporation. And when I read this article, I was like, man, I really want to be a part of something. I don't know what that meant. Obviously, this was years ago. I didn't know what it would transpire into, but at the time, I was a part of the IDSA leadership here in Chicago, and thought about like maybe I can do that with IDSA. But I felt that if I really wanted to have something like that, it would be something that I would have to create, right, from the ground up, things like that. And ever since I graduated undergraduate school, I've always been on this drive of just meeting everyone, getting to know as many people as possible. And when you're in design, that's what you do. You network, right? So planting seeds and things like that, because you just never know what might happen. Someone might offer you a job, or they might want to collaborate with you, whatever the case may be. But since 2009, I was planting seeds and creating relationships with people across the country. And then when I started the organization in 2016 in the summer, a lot of my first and second year students came to me and they were like, hey, we want to do something this summer. We don't qualify for an internship, or we don't have much going on. Can you find us a space for us to meet? Like, us, a few of us to meet.
Make use out of the summer.
Yeah, be productive over the summer. We can meet, and maybe you can show us stuff about sketching and things like that. And I was like, yeah, that'd be cool, because you're not being graded, and even though I wasn't getting paid and they weren't getting school credit, we just built this bond, this relationship of trust and commitment. Like, you show up and I show up, right? And that's really how the organization started. It started a summer workshop at University of Illinois in Chicago at UIC, and I immediately just, I don't know, it was just like a spark that went off, turned into fire, and I just got really close with those students. Like, I just felt like when they went back to school, like I had their back, right? Because I went through the summer with them. It was almost like going away to like camp or something, right? And you build this like internal bond with people for the rest of your life. The school semester started, and I started asking people to help me with a video library that I was working on. So I started reaching out to like 400 designers around the country, and I was like, hey, do you mind making a video for me? Just take your iPhone, find a quiet room, talk about you, talk about what you do, who you work for. And if you are, if you have a particular skill like sketching, or you're rendering, or whatever the case may be, like show it, because what I want to do is build a library and have this resource for anyone to look at for free. And I got like 150 videos back.
Wow.
And I was like, wow, this is really cool resources, because if anyone ever struggles with sketching, they can go watch this video. If they struggle with this, they can go over here. And that's essentially what really started this snowball effect of the organization. When I was at UIC, I taught design sketching, which is like rapid viz, your intro to. And so for the summer, because it was a summer gathering, I was like, okay, this can be the advanced design sketching of my design sketching course. And that's where that name came from.
Interesting.
It's really long, and the name just kind of like it's stuck, and it just stayed there, and we never really thought about it. Like we were like, okay, whatever. And I made a logo in like 2 minutes. Because I just didn't know. It was so unofficial that I didn't know, because the school was like, well, if you're going to use our facilities, you can't say that this is a summer class hosted by the school, right? They didn't want the students to say that they were taking a summer class.
It was more of a private thing.
Exactly. Like the school didn't want to give us validation or credit. Like, don't say that this summer workshop is part of UIC. And so then I started to say, oh, well, it's an IDSA thing. It's hosted by IDSA Chicago, since I was, the chair at the time. But then after like 2-3 weeks, I was like, well, it can be like its own thing. Like, it doesn't have to be through IDSA either. And I was like, well, I'm just going to call it Advanced Design Sketching. I'll make a quick logo. I'll make an Instagram. And the Instagram was to communicate with the students. Like, hey, this week we're doing this. This week we're doing this. And I was able to then ask my friends, like, you know, my professional friends, like, hey, can you Skype in? If you're in town, can you come visit us? And, like, people started to show up to, you know, these summer workshops. The next summer we met again at UIC, and we had in the second summer we actually collaborated with Coca-Cola.
Oh.
I had a friend.
Did they just approach you guys?
No, well, I had a friend. His name is Tommy Mitchell. He was a designer at Coca-Cola. He's no longer there, but I told him, like, hey, I'm doing the summer workshop. It'd be really cool if we collaborate with a design team and I have the students be a part of this real industry level collaboration. And they were like, yeah. And they would Skype in with us every week, and the students would have designs for them. And that was like the first taste of this collaboration with an industry partner.
Super cool.
Had Michael DiTullo was here. He was like visiting Wisconsin. Like, he was looking at Frank Lloyd homes, and he was doing something. I think he was on vacation. But he stopped by the workshop, and he gave like a lecture, a workshop, and it was awesome. And I was like, cool. Like, I don't know what this is, but it's cool. And the students were, you know, were like, yeah, this is, you know, this is obviously benefiting them because they're going to go back to school and they're going to be ahead of, you know, their class. And then that fall, it was fall of 2016, when I went back to teaching at UIC, I started to be like, you know what, if this is going to be something serious, I need to select a team. Like, you know, I could have made a poster that said, looking for team members, it's open. And I would have had like 100 students sign up. But I know that if I was going to create something, I wanted to scout students that had the same ambition that I did, that had the same, you know, the same vision, the same fire, the same, you know, that they wanted to do something for the community, not for us. And that's when I at school, I started selecting like 6 students. I was like, hey, can I talk to you? Met them in the hallway, and then I blew their mind when I told them what I was doing. And they're like, are you serious? I don't think they took me seriously, but they were like, okay, sure.
Did you tell them about your ambition, or what was?
Yeah, I was like, you know, I have this idea. This is what I'm thinking. You can be the first person to be a part of this amazing organization. Like, whenever I'm really excited about something, I talk about it in a way that it already happened in the future. So I plant that vision in someone, because, you know, like, people have to trust you, right? You gotta, and I guess in that sense, that visionary, right? I'm that visionary. And, you know, you do this elevator pitch, and you got to get them in the first seconds. And if you see their eyes light up, then you're like, they're the perfect person, right? I asked like 6 people, and it took off from there. After that, we started meeting, and then we're like, you know, we started having monthly events in Chicago where we brought in designers, and our first event drew in like 200 people in a room that fit 80 people. And it was with Joey Celadon. I don't know if you know who he is, but he's an awesome designer.
I had him on a podcast as well.
Oh my God. That's awesome. So he was our first like guest, and that's when we introduced Advanced Design Sketching to the community. And we had like 6 or 7 events that followed, like every month, for free. And then we met again, and we're like, you know, we can't do this every month. We have to do something big, something that's going to put us on the map, something that's going to be disruptive. And that's where we came up with the idea of having a conference. Square One. And the name came out of, you know, failure and starting from scratch when you know, fail, right? And that's what our industry is, right? And then after Square One, It happened at UIC at the School of Design, and I think that school only fits 200 people when it's full capacity. We had like 600 people show up.
Wow.
Yeah,
It's more than a conference here.
The room was like, I can see the bolts coming out of the windows because people were sitting on the floor. They were sitting on top of each other. The Eventbrite that we made, we only had room for 300 people. Something happened where the Eventbrite kept accepting people's orders. And when we went back to check, there's like 640 some people signed up, and we're like, how does this happen? Like, we can't, like, obviously we weren't going to refund 300 people because who, like, you know, like, that's money, you know, like, you can use that money to really change things and do stuff. And we were just like, we're just gonna, this was the day before too. It was like the night before, and we just did it.
It worked out.
Yeah, when my team and myself, when we talk about it, we're like, this was like Fire Festival. It was like Fire Festival, a little bit of Woodstock, where it was just like internally
camps.
There's internally, you know that there's disasters happening, but the people that are there don't see them because they're just having a good time, right? Like when everyone talks about Woodstock, they talk about the great times, but no one talks about the people that fucking died, right? Like, people, it was nuts. So Square One was crazy, and the demand was so, after that, people were like, when's your next one? When's your next one? The demand just grew that 10 months later, we had our second one. Like, we didn't even wait a year. We immediately started planning. There was the adrenaline, right? Like, our blood was pumping. We're like, oh, we have to top the next one or the first one. And the second one happened 10 months later here at IIT, the Illinois Institute of Technology. They hosted us, and that was fantastic too. We had about 500 people show up to that.
Oh wow! Okay.
And then
after big conference,
like those were really big conferences, and we had a stage like downstairs, and we had a keynote, and it was just really amazing and so rewarding, and it was just a really good feeling that you did something from nothing, right? And after the second conference is when our organization really started to get organized, because for the last 2 years we had all of our eggs in one basket, which was the conference. But after that, that's when we really started to organize. Our organization started to split up into committees. We started to do initiatives. One of them is this podcast, Context Podcast. The other one is Archive, which is the book initiative. Another one is Ready Set Proto, which is where we really promote prototyping. Another one is that we haven't announced yet, and I'm not going to announce it here. There's just so many, right? And the committee is led by like 4 or 5 people, and they all have autonomy, and they all make decisions. Like, this is where I want this initiative to go. I don't make any of the decisions. I feel like I'm there to support and provide resources wherever I can. Like, I'm here at this conference, and I'm meeting so many people, old people, seeing old friends and making new ones. And the point is, the people who want to be a part and supporting us, hey, then I put them in contact with, committees that make sense, other initiatives. And now we're planning on a third conference. We're really close to being done planning it, and that's happening in October in San Francisco. So a lot of stuff. I feel like I just told you the top half of a iceberg, right?
I assume
we can. It goes more into depth. We've had a plethora of design advisors and so many people that have really helped us shape and influence the direction of the organization, which is how it should be. If you're an organization that is there to help the community, your door should always be open to getting to hearing voices from everyone, not just your internal team, but you should welcome people's opinions, right?
Absolutely.
So that's a little bit of advanced design.
Yeah, pretty impressive.
Thank you very much. Yeah, really appreciate that. But tell me about you. Tell me about where you went to school and how you ended up working, or how you ended up here in Chicago, right?
Sure. So I started out in design, quite early. I mean, everybody knows the topic, obviously, about building Legos and so on when they're younger, right? But I also, when I was 16, I started to work besides school at an advertising agency. So I did a lot of graphics design for
At
them.
16?
At 16.
Oh my God.
But I was just besides school. It's actually mandatory from school. And actually, I didn't earn any dollar there. So it was completely, it didn't look back then like a great experience. I didn't got anything out of it financially, but early on learned InDesign and all these programs, and I also felt quite early strong drive somehow to go into a creative space, somewhere between technology and art, or technology and design. That's what I felt like was a good spot. And then I went into it very early and got some experience in model building and did a lot of sketching. Obviously, this was really also a driver for me to go into design. Mika Di Tullo and all these great Spencer Nugent and all these great sketching guys.
Great sketchers,
right? I really love to do this, and this was definitely also an inspiration for me to go into the space. So then I ended up studying industrial design in Folkwang University in Essen. And also, during that time and also before that, I also got quite a bit of an experience in interface design and graphic design and so on, like I was saying earlier. So some of the comments I also got during the internship was just stick to interface design, UX UI design. There's so many jobs, don't even there's no need to also add this industrial design part to it. So, and that challenged me a little bit, and I kept on studying industrial design, and I went to internship at Bosch and Wurfreich in Düsseldorf, and really try to combine these two worlds of interaction or UX UI design and industrial design. And then I ended up doing the master at Advanced Product Design Program in University of Design, Northern Sweden, Umeå. And again, I tried to really connect the dots there and my past experiences on UX UI design and industrial design. In between, there was 1 year break during the master degree program, which is really common there. Again, gained some practice. I went to Bosch, did my thesis in industrial design. Actually, I did a service design project, so again tried to blur the boundaries a little bit. So, and then after that time working on a service design project, I then went for 1 year to the US. So I was Javier here at Minimal in Chicago, and then Javier in Designworks in LA, BMW Designworks, mostly working on product and industrial design. And then I went back to Sweden for a short amount of time to finish up some courses, and then started to work on a master degree thesis, where I really tried to combine all of these things that I learned now in these different aspects around design. Because as soon as you tell them what you study, people try to put you into boxes, and I wanted to break this up a little bit. So then I got the opportunity to do my master thesis at BMW, which part of that I was presenting here at the conference today, and later on started working at BMW. Really great experience. Actually, a couple of years ago, I told everyone I will never go into automotive, right? Because when I was getting into design, it was very popular in industrial design, obviously, to go to an automotive company and do transportation or car design, right? I wanted to do more problem-solving design, but now actually the conversation in the industry is a complete different one, right? So now everyone talks about autonomous driving, electrification, digital services. So now actually this space, I was, telling everyone when I was getting into, design, I don't want to go into this space. Now suddenly it's a completely different space, and it's, I think, super attractive for designers to shape this future about mobility. And maybe a bit of a story why I started the podcast. So I, end up doing a couple of lectures at universities. I started to work at BMW. Every time I was in university and gave a lecture there, sometimes I also shared a little bit of my own journey, things I learned, and it was extremely rewarding afterwards if young design students approach me and say, hey, this was interesting, can you give me some advice, or hey, can you introduce me to somebody? And I really start to enjoy that a lot, that feeling that you provided value to others. and that you were somehow valuable or made a positive contribution to somebody and you helped somebody. And, it just feels like a really positive thing to do. And I was just thinking, okay, how could I, potentially scale that? I didn't want to go in education yet, maybe at some point. At the same time, I was also, visiting China a few times, and I saw so many people running around with headphones there, and just looking at their smartphones so much. I thought maybe podcasting is a good way.
Yeah.
And so then this whole idea started about like, hey, how about creating a podcast to, exactly do what I did at university, try to be helpful and, inspire people. Obviously looked a little bit on what kind of podcasts or programs are already out there. I was like, you guys doing an amazing job. And also, had to look a little bit, okay, there's already a lot of great things there. So I need to come from a different angle and maybe do something that hasn't been addressed yet, or add another thing to the bigger puzzle. So the topic of the podcast it's called Designdrives, so Designdrives ? What is design driving? So the whole idea is about exploring with designers, looking back at their career and look on their learnings where they had the feeling design had a really big impact. And I hope ultimately this is inspiring designers to use design or be inspired about what design can do and drive positive things or have impact. So that's basically the whole idea.
That's awesome. That's I think the more people, what you're doing is you're giving someone a voice to talk about their opinions about design, to add to the conversation of design.
Yeah.
And I think a podcast is a good way, especially since everyone has their headphones on, right? Or people drive. I listen to podcasts when I'm driving, long distances. So that's awesome. That's amazing. That's fantastic.
Yeah, I think the podcast is also a casual format, right, to start that kind of topics.
Exactly.
I think it has the lowest entry barrier. I also need to do this somehow besides my work time. That time is very limited, so and then podcast is I think a format that has a really low entry barrier.
So technically you can teach at a university level as a professor. You ever think about that?
I did guest lectures at universities, which like I was explaining earlier, was inspiration for me to do this in a different format and like on a scale format. So yeah, I'm definitely, I could imagine that doing that at some point there.
Yeah, I know a lot of younger people have their graduate, degrees, and I'm always encouraging them, like, think about going into education, because we need more younger educators.
Yeah.
To complement, the current educators that exist right now and bring a different style and a different way of teaching, So that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's very good. And you have quite a impressive list of places that you've worked at, and now you're at BMW, right? So you should be really proud of yourself. It's really awesome. Like it's awesome.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Maybe reflecting a little bit on the conference here, IDC. I was talking earlier to Chris Lovadis about Chicago as a design community. You're strongly connected to Chicago. I wonder a little bit about what is your view on the design?
The design scene here in Chicago.
Yeah, Chicago.
It's its own little world bubble, I guess, here in Chicago. You look at the design scene in San Francisco, New York City, and Chicago. There's a lot of design, not just industrial design. There's a lot of, like, UX is blowing up here, right? The term product design, right, can be used in so many different ways.
Yeah. That's a whole other topic,
that's
right?
a whole nother. Yeah, the West Loop here in Chicago is blowing up with design studios. Like, Google's moving in. Google is building a UX team, I think, next year in that area, right where Minimal's at.
Yeah.
Facebook has a presence here. A lot of really, elite, prestigious UX firms that are actually a part of the Chicago Design Experience. It's like a studio tour that's happening tomorrow after the conference is over. Yeah. They're opening their doors. And then a lot of industrial design firms are also evolving into practice UI UX. So if we're only talking about traditional design, it's pretty big, but the design scene in general, I think it's pretty on a scale if you include other things, visual communication, UI UX. I think this is a design city, and obviously complementary to just the great architecture that's here. Like there's a lot of overlap. Yeah, and I've been a part of, you know, the IDSA leadership for, this is my 10th year. It's a long time. This is my 10th year, and you know, I feel like design in Chicago is finally mature.
Yeah.
Because, you know, when I started, you know, having IDSA events, it was hard because you were asking sometimes the same people, you know, to host an event, and you know, you want to keep events exciting and new locations, new speakers. But now it's like, you know, so different. So, and you know, some studios have closed their doors, some have opened, some have been bought out by design research companies, you know, like Lunar, right, was here, and now they're McKinsey. So yeah, it's a pretty rich history of the design culture here. So, and this is the second, I think this is the second international design conference that has happened in Chicago.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So, I mean,
you mean actually IDC, the second one of IDC here in Chicago?
Yep.
All right.
Yeah. The first one was like in 2010.
Oh. Okay.
Yeah, like it was down the street, but yeah, I mean, it's cool. I like it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think what needs to happen is design education needs to keep up with the pace of the demand of professional jobs here.
Yeah.
Right now, there's only like one institution that teaches undergraduate design, like industrial design, and then there's, you know, multiple graduate schools, but there needs to be more. And I think that's another reason why I started advanced design, right? It's another resource for free education and things like that. So, but there's other, you know, AIGA exists, IDSA, there's a Women in Design organization. There's a lot of, it's thriving, right? So, yeah.
You know, you were just mentioning a little bit like education system, you know. I think what's also super interesting is that I think there's this whole topic of the disruption of the education system, right? Especially if you look at discussions that are happening around the future of universities, right? Is, you know, is it still valuable to go for people to go to Harvard or like spend all this money on education? And this whole market that is starting to, you know, pop up about like, you know, private programs or let's say also initiatives that, you know, try to, you know, bring education to people with in a different format, and also bringing in things that are important in the digital age, right? What I see from Advanced Design, I think Advanced Design is also a participant, I think, in that kind of conversation, right?
We are trying to, and there's internally we've talked about how can we be a disruptor, right?
Yeah.
Especially myself being in education, I know the good stuff and obviously like things that need to be worked on, right? Education is not perfect, but it should always be evolving, and sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's stagnant, and sometimes, you know, it just really depends on the institution, on the faculty, the team, and things like that. But yeah, you know, the way that I see design education and the way that I would want design education to be is more of this apprenticeship format. The reason why I'm saying that is I'm a really big fan of Dwayne Edward. He started Pencil in Portland, and the way that he does it is he has, you know, this boot camp style of where students are like taking a class, and it's very intense, right? You go through really intense footwear training, and at the end, you know, Pencil guarantees that the students are like the best of the best, and there's companies lined up waiting to hire them. Like, that sounds awesome, right? Like apprenticeship, you know, like the student is also is learning from an educator, but also from industry professionals.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that's a concept that I would love to iterate on.
Bring other people into the program. It's interesting. I mean, if you look at the Swedish education system, you know, Umeå, what they do, they have, you know, one professor for each program there. So in product design is Thomas Degen. And so you have one full-time person being there and being in charge of the program. But then for every program, they actually bring in another external, advisor or somebody from the industry that, is there for the project and, brings in the industry perspective. And it's similar a little bit what you were saying. I don't think to that degree, but...
It's definitely a problem. It's a design problem. We're designers, right? Yeah. Let's find a way to really change and supplement what's already been built, right? Education has been around forever. But I feel like design education hasn't. And since education has been around forever, we just kind of adapted what existed and we just built a curriculum around that. So... especially now where industrial design is changing and evolving, we need to adapt. There needs to be a reflection of industry to what we're teaching. And that's going to piss people off because there's educators who have been teaching 40, 50 years.
Yeah.
And they obviously don't like things to change, right? So, but, sometimes you have to do things that aren't popular.
Yep.
And that's how disruption happens, right?
Yeah.
I don't know. It's something that I've always been thinking about it. And right now, I'm at, where I teach, I'm not like a senior faculty. So I could only voice my opinion. But hopefully in the near future, I'm in a position where I'm able to make decisions that really affect the students, right?
So where do you see the whole organization going? There's been interesting things. For example, you were just explaining that you were starting out with advanced sketching design, and then you dropped the sketching part, right? And now you advanced design, which can either be advanced design or advanced design, right?
We thought about that.
Yeah, I assume so.
Yeah,
right?
When we were rebranding, we rebranded because it was called Advanced Design Sketching. We dropped the sketching because, if your organization, especially the name Advanced Design Sketching, is extremely niche, like it sounds like all you do is sketching and very foundational stuff, which is completely fine. But your organization can't really grow from that because all you're going to be doing is you're almost, you're hostage to the name, right? So we dropped the name, we rebranded to Advanced Design. We thought about advance without the D because you're advancing design.
Design as a discipline. Right?
Exactly. Yeah. And it was something that we thought about and we fought man, should it be this or should it be that, right?
You could do some interesting games with it's ending with a D, right?
And it starts with a D, so it would have been together, right? Yeah. That's clever. We definitely thought about it, but we felt that it was right to drop sketching because it would allow us to open the door to invite other disciplines in. Obviously, our foundational, our mantra is always going to be in sketching, communicating, and things like that. That's a foundational skill that every designer has, and we're never going to shy away from that. At our conferences, we're always going to have a designer sketching, right? But it also, we as an organization, we wanted to get bigger, we wanted to evolve, and by dropping sketching, we were able to then have conversations with other speakers in UI UX or graphic design or architecture or engineering or interior design, whatever the case may be, without them having to tell us do I have to sketch? Right? It's a very awkward conversation. I think that was the right decision moving forward. It allowed us to partner up with so many people and allowed us to also partner up with other sponsorships, and it really opened the doors for us to invite different perspectives, right? So yeah, we rebranded and we haven't looked back yet. Even the logo, if you look at the logo, it's like this squircle. It's a squircle, and when the two designers on my team, they worked on it and they brought it to us, we're like even the logo it's so abstract that it can be so many things, right? And we liked that it was like a blob, and Yeah.
When I was seeing it for the first time, I was in connection to the Apple logo a little bit, like the passion of yours.
Yeah, and like surprisingly, like I said, the team is autonomous. They bring these ideas, and it's a collective. We're all like, yes, let's vote on this, or no, let's not do it. But we have a discussion about it, right? I try to do my best to influence my decision, but it's the team.
Yeah. What's the grand vision for advanced design in the long term? You mentioning already, like, taking on all the disciplines, right? UX and so on. But what's the
the grand vision? So we're doing so many things. We're doing high school outreach, podcasts, events, conferences. We just got a space in the West Loop. So
nice.
It's a small space, but it's a space that we can meet, and we're thinking of having a small event there. But it'd be really cool. Like I personally it would be awesome if we had a bigger space for us to really build out this apprenticeship program that I'm talking about. I've been personally meeting with designers here in Chicago about creating this vision for what can this apprenticeship program be. And they're on board, and they're like, okay, right, like how do we make this real, right? And that's going to take time, and it's going to take strategy. But honestly, as far as the vision, that's my vision, right? I still got to talk to the team about it. And if they're like, nope, then I need to. But honestly, the vision is I leave that up. I have my own personal vision, but what we want to do for the next year, it really comes down to what the design team is doing, their ideas. That's how our initiative started. Someone had an epiphany. They're like, oh my God, I think we should do this. And they organized it, and they developed it into an idea, and now they're executing it. It's really going to come down to what the team comes up with. This year we're in San Francisco. Next year we're in another city, not in Chicago. I like that right now we're traveling to different parts of the country, because I think the one vision that we have really been kept, we kept true to ourselves, is that we want education to be accessible, right? We don't, like, you can go to a lot of conferences and they're so expensive. Yeah. And if you're a student, you can't afford that. And that's not fair. Yeah. Right? I was in that position once. So we want to make education as accessible as possible, which is probably why we're traveling to other cities. We're always going to be in Chicago. We have events here. So, to
enable this in different cities, right?
Exactly. We have events here too. So if don't think that we're abandoning in Chicago. We have events here. And we have had events here. So if you think that, we're abandoning Chicago, like, ask yourself, have you attended our events in Chicago, right? But yeah, no, we're having events in New York City. We're having, we have a presence in Milwaukee and San Francisco. So yeah, I don't have a long-term answer for you, but short-term, honestly, the organization is only 3 years old, and we're starting to learn how to walk. Yeah. I did have an epiphany that I'll share with you, that I guess this will be the first time that I share it with the rest of the world. I would like to have a Square One version, or a version of Square One, but specifically in high school.
Interesting.
So only for high school students. And I think we can allow college students, because it would be really cool for high school students to work with college students, right? Like in a team or whatever that. But it would be really cool to bring real professional industrial designers into the high school setting. And we would have
even earlier than university, right?
Yeah. So we would have to do it in a high school that already supports design and has that curriculum. And there's some here in Chicago. So
yeah, I was just talking with Chris before about schools like where they try to bring design thinking to that kind of classes, and just enable that creative problem solving. Yeah, I mean, design has not a lot visibility in high school, right? The whole creative industry, maybe. I don't know how it is in the US, but at least in Europe, you really have to dig deeper into potential jobs to find out about design, right? It's not really, part of the big conversations about directions you can go after high school.
It's the same thing here. Yeah. Unless you go to a very, a school that caters towards art, design, and engineering or something like that, right? Like you have to go to a very specialty school. I was lucky. I went to a performing arts school in Chicago, and performing arts, so music, dance, theater, and when you go to the school your first year, you have to select a major. So you have to select something that you're going to take those courses for the rest of high school, and I stumbled upon set design.
Okay.
So theater, and you design the sets, and it was super fun.
Yeah,
because the high school plays were funny, and like you had, and when I was in high school, one of my sculpture teachers was like, "Hey, your sketches for the sets are very playful. You should look into like toy design." And he went to a school in Kansas. And he was like, "I think there's like an industrial design school there. Like, you should look it up." And I started looking into it, but nothing really happened until I went to college. I went to college with the intention of continuing set design, and then I didn't like it. And then that's when I transitioned over. Like, okay, well, I know there has to be a design program here, but I know like I wanted to do design. I just didn't know what.
Yeah.
And I went to go visit that school of design and walked by an office. The door was open, and I asked a professor, like, "Hey, like, what's industrial design?" And she was like, "Industrial design is everything." And I was just like, "What the fuck?
Right.
What the fuck?" Yeah, like, that's so, like, I don't know if she was being so high level.
Totally macro, huh?
Yeah, this naive student who wanted like a practical answer of what it was. She was like, everything. And that her answer freaked me out, that I like walked backwards out of her office, like, okay. And I then proceeded to apply for it.
For me, it was literally, I noticed I want to go into the creative space. Then there was a book in Germany with all potential jobs, all jobs that are in Germany at least, right? Yeah. So it's like that thick, right?
Jeez.
So it's just like all jobs basically, and then I always had a little bit of description, and I went through this whole book. I didn't read everything. I was glimpsing to a lot of things, but I was stuck with product design and industrial design. There was like that sounds really interesting. Yeah. And then
it's amazing. Like I know everyone has this story of, I didn't find design until university, or like you said, I played with Legos or something like that, right? Yeah. Like there's something creative that you did.
Yeah.
And then these stories are so unique that our industry is so small, right? And it's like we all got here by chance, right? Or we got here by luck because someone either told you something or they gave you Legos to play with. But it's crazy, It's not like you go, like when you go to school in high school, they teach you math, science, English, And if you want to be a mathematician, like
there you have it. Right?
You get exposed to math and
with design. School. You have to choose.
In design, it's like a needle in a haystack.
Yeah.
Like you have to find about it, and then you have to like it, and when you find out about design, go and play the lottery, because it's like the odds of that happening are like crazy. So
I think we need to wrap this up.
Yeah, absolutely.
It was really a pleasure to speak to you, and
absolutely
really inspiring to hear the journey of advanced design.
I appreciate you, telling us about your origin story and studying in so many places. And you're younger than I am, I think.
27.
Oh, hell yeah. I'm turning 33 tomorrow.
All right.
But, man, when I was 27 years old, I think I was first starting grad school and I didn't know what I was doing. And at this conference, I'm meeting so many of these young designers, yourself, I just met with Laura. She's like 26. Everyone's like kicking ass.
But even if I look back to the university now in Umeå and like see these guys doing projects, I think like, wow. Like I think the level is always rising.
It puts pressure on the older people. Like, oh yeah, they're coming after our jobs. But no, thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, thank you so much.
You know, we really have to take advantage of our stories because, you know, you're coming from Munich, you know, like it's not every day that you come to Chicago. So I'm really happy that this was able to happen. And, you know, I heard that you're interviewing other amazing people, which is fantastic. In our caption for context, I'll put, you know, your information, and I'll make sure that people know what you're doing, who you are. So
likewise, yeah.
Because it's an amazing work that you're doing, and your podcast is really awesome because this mic looks really awesome. But yeah, let's build the design future together, and whatever we can do to support you, you know, let us know and we'll be there.
Yeah, same on my side. Yeah.
So cool. Thank you so much, Sebastian. Then thank you for tuning into Context and into Designdrives.
That was the episode. If you want to give us feedback on the podcast, have something to contribute to the next episode, or just want to get in touch, feel free to connect with us either on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram messages, or simply via the designdrives.org website. We love to hear from you.